In this video, we're going to be talking about the factors that affect transpiration. So here we have a lovely plant, right? It is rooted in the ground, and we know that transpiration is pretty much just sweating, but for a plant, right? It's a fancy name for sweating. We know plants take up water in the root, sucks it up into the xylem, right? The xylem is a pipe in the stem that sucks up the water, and it transfers it to the leaves and the cells that require or need this water and nutrients to survive. But at the end, it reaches a little structure called the stoma, okay, or the stomata. And this structure is where the sweat of the plant leaves, okay? And this structure looks like this, okay? It can look either like this or like this. So you can notice here there is a little hole. This is the stoma, okay? So these things around is just cells, okay? I didn't put nucleuses or organelles just for simplicity's sake, but this right here is the stoma. So right here, the stoma is open, whereas in this form, the stoma is closed, okay? So in this form, water can leave. In this form, the plant can sweat, whereas in this form, no water will leave, okay? So we're gonna be talking about what things cause this form to exist and what things cause water or sweating to happen more than normal, or what things cause sweating to happen more. Okay, so here we have the same image. Okay, we have the closed form and the open form. Okay, but this time the closed form is at the top, open form at the bottom. Okay, so just don't be confused. Now we notice the stoma has water, right? And water can leave if the stoma is open. Now, what causes the stoma to be open in the first place? The sun, okay? Light. As soon as there's light, even if it's not the sun, if you do an experiment and you just shine a flashlight, the stoma will open. So light is the key trigger to open the stoma. When there's darkness, so that's why I put it here, because if the sun represents this arrow, okay? So as soon as there's light, the stoma will go from closed to open, allowing water to leave now. Whereas in darkness, so where there's the moon, or at night, or whatever, the stoma is closed, so water will not leave, okay? So this is one important thing affecting transpiration. The sun will cause more transpiration because the stoma is open, so water can leave. Now let's get into some more complicated ones, okay? Okay, here we go. So here we have, now assuming that it's sunny, okay, we have the open stoma. The stoma is open, water can leave. Now, what affects the stoma to lose more water? Okay, so we know it can lose water if it's open, but what causes it to lose a little water, and what causes it to lose a lot of water? So you see in this picture here, you can see the stoma is losing a lot of water, whereas in this one, it's not losing any water. The water isn't leaving even though the stoma is open. So what are some things that can cause the stoma to lose more water? So here they are. I'll explain each of them individually, so don't worry if you don't understand them. The first one is temperature. A high temperature will cause more water to leave through the stoma, so more transpiration. A lower humidity. So this picture here means percentage of water in the air. So if the environment is very humid, it means there's a lot of water vapor, in the air. It's very wet, as to say. Okay, so when it's very dry, the plant will lose more water. And wind causes transpiration to increase as well. So what causes the stoma to not? What causes the plant to not transpire much? What causes it to not lose water? The exact opposite things. So cold weather, high humidity, or no wind. Okay, having no wind, all of these things will decrease transpiration. So let's get into these explanations properly. Okay, so just to confirm that you get it, remember a stoma is just a little structure that you can find when you zoom into a plant. Okay, it's a little hole that forms when the cells allow it to. When these are guard cells, when they make this half moon shape to allow a circle to be formed. Okay, let's get to it. So here I have a very simplified diagram, okay? It's not a flower. Maybe it looks like a flower, but trust me, it's not a flower. What I have here is a very simplified diagram of what's going on here. I have the water, okay, as you can see, the water. Then I have this, which represents this pipe, which represents the root and the xylem. Represents the root and the xylem, okay? So the whole piping that leads to the leaf. And then I have this, which represents some cells of the leaf, if you zoom in close, and then in this case it's closed, but there would be the stoma if these guard cells form the half moon shape, okay, allowing the water to exit, allowing transpiration to happen or sweating to happen. Okay, so it's a very simplified diagram, okay, but it makes the explanation quite convenient. So first off, we're going to do number one. What causes it to open? What causes the stoma to show? Because right now the guard cells are guarding the hole. It's not letting it open. So in a previous video, I explained exactly the mechanism, the molecular mechanism of how these guard cells form this circle or allow the circle to be revealed. But for now, I'm just talking about the factors that affect it. So we know as soon as there's darkness, these guard cells will be closed and they will not open the stoma. But because these guard cells are activated by the light to open. So as soon as the sun comes in the morning, it will send these sun rays and it will directly activate these guard cells to trigger and open, okay? And this will reveal a little hole, which is the stoma, which the transpiration or sweating can occur from, okay? So this, again, is what allows the hole to open. Now, let's go into detail now on the other factors. So now, assuming, let me make this clear. Assuming it's a sunny day, okay, the stoma is already open, right? So I'm just going to put the sun here so you remember it's a sunny day. Now, assume it's a sunny day. What's going to affect transpiration to increase? We know what, okay? We know high temperature. Why? Why high temperature? So sweating for a plant is very similar to sweating for a human. When you're in hot temperature or cold temperature, which one will you sweat more in? Hot temperature, right? In a hot temperature, you will lose more water. That is because, think about a kettle. Wait a second. 1 second before you think about the kettle. In a kettle, we may put water, right, initially. And the water is staying in the kettle, okay? So if you assume this is like a kettle, the water will stay in the plant if the temperature is low. But if the temperature increases, the water will be able to evaporate, right? So the higher the temperature, the more water can evaporate and become water vapor. And like in a kettle, when the temperature is high enough, the water starts to evaporate and leave the kettle, right? That is sort of what happens here. When the temperature is high enough, the water can evaporate and turn into gas form, just like in a kettle, and leave the stoma, okay? So that's how it happens. A high temperature allows for more water to leave by evaporation, whereas a low temperature would will not allow the water to leave because it's too cold, so the evaporation cannot happen properly. Okay, so that's it for temperature. Next, now we have humidity. With high humidity, remember humidity is just how much percentage of water is in the air. So if, for example, Shanghai or the Amazon or some rainforests are very humid, so the air is very wet. You can kind of feel it. It's very wet. So because they have a lot of water vapor in the air, a lot of water vapor in the air. Okay, so let's assume there's a lot of water vapor in the air. Okay, so these are water vapor. Okay, it's very crowded. It's very, very humid. What happens is this will prevent water from leaving because it's so crowded with water outside that the water is now traveling against its concentration gradient. It's not favorable to exit into this sea of water vapor. It's like, imagine going into a room that is really, really crowded. It's really difficult, right? So for this water molecule to leave into this really crowded space is very difficult. So it prefers to stay inside the plant. So that's why high humidity reduces transpiration, right? High humidity reduces transpiration or sweating, whatever. Whereas low humidity would mean there's a very low amount of water vapor. So let's delete some. A very low amount. So it's really not that humid. It's really not that humid. Now there's such a low amount, a low concentration of water outside that this water vapor can this water from the can really easily leave the stoma into the space because it's not very crowded. The concentration gradient is favorable. It is favorable for this to leave into an open space. Okay. Now, next part, the last part. So I hope it's making sense so far. Let's move this. So this just means reduced percentage of water in the air, so humidity. Now last one, this is the one most people find pretty tricky, so hopefully this makes sense. Now we have wind. When there is no wind, okay, you can imagine, wind blows things out of the way. Like you can see when the wind blows the trees' leaves, some of them, sometimes they fly off and get moved to another place, right? Or the pollen gets moved to another place, right? So the same way that wind moves things around, wind can move water vapor around. So right now, let's say there's this much water vapor around the plant. If there's wind, it goes, okay, it moves and it blows all the water away from the plant. Okay, what does this mean if it blows it away? Moves it to like another place and it's going to move it away. Now it's even more empty. The space around the plant is even more empty, even less humid. So essentially wind makes the environment less humid, less full of water droplets, which means the water will even more easily leave. It wants to go down its concentration gradient. If there's nothing on the outside but so much water inside the plant, it will easily leave because there's no crowding, there's no it's like not having any people in a room. It's so easy to go in, right? So in that way, you can see wind kind of is related to humidity. When there's high wind, it causes all the water to be blown away, so there's low humidity or low amount of water molecules left, so water can easily leave or transpire or do transpiration from the stoma. On the contrary, when we have, say we have a normal amount of water, a normal amount of humidity, and there's no wind, that means this water will stay exactly around the plant. It won't be pushed away. So now it's not as good as having no water around. So only some water will leave, but not as much as having no water vapor around. Okay. So I hope you get these 4 factors. So just to recap, there's one factor affecting whether or not the stoma opens. Okay, and that's light. And there are 3 factors affecting how much water can leave the stoma if it's open. And so all of this is everything and all the factors that affect transpiration.